Marty Schupak and the Youth Sports Club is proud to present the Base Running and Bunting Drills video. This program will go into two of the most fundamental yet underrated skills of youth baseball: base running and bunting. Most youth baseball coaches concentrate on hitting and fielding at their practices. Base running and bunting tends to get overlooked, even though proper techniques for these two aspects of the game can lead to better scoring opportunities in games. There are numerous drills that coaches can teach their players which are guaranteed to make them more rounded baseball players and better students of the game. Coaches are encouraged to change the drills in this video and develop ones of their own to meet the needs and skill levels of their players. As always, Marty Schupak and the Youth Sports Club emphasize improve as individuals, improve as a team, and have fun. 1. Running through first base. One of the most basic base running concepts to teach players in youth baseball is to run through first base after a hit. Many players, especially youth-level athletes, will tend to slow down while looking up for the ball. In this drill, the first in line runs down the first base line and through the base, veering off into foul territory. When stepping on the base, players should hit around the middle of the base. In youth levels, players should not get hung up on hitting the base with one particular foot or hitting a particular spot. Practicing this basic technique will force players to run hard the entire way down the line in games and never give up on the play. 2. Bouncing off first base. Aggressive base running is also smart base running. Teaching players to bounce off the base as the ball crosses the plate will put the base runner in a great position if the ball gets bobbled or gets by the catcher, either by a wild pitch or a pass ball. Runners should always want the catcher to think about throwing to first base, even if they do not plan on stealing, because it may lead to a wild throw. It will also put the base runner in an excellent position for the delayed steal. Players should also bounce back to the base if they aren't stealing, and when doing so, they should not take their eyes off the pitcher. The base runner should also return to the back of the base because it's the furthest distance from where the ball would be coming from if the catcher attempts a snap throw to the first baseman. 3. Stealing from first base. Go. Stealing in youth baseball is a combination of speed, smarts, and timing. In this drill, players line up beside first base. The first in line gets into the ready position, and on the go command, which signals the pitch crossing home plate, the runner takes off for second base. Notice that we want the runner's first step to be with the foot that is on the base. This crossover motion generates explosive power and speed by using the base to push off of. Again, players should start at the back part of the base, and when running into second, they should aim for the back part of that base to avoid being tagged. League rules concerning when a base runner can steal may vary. However, the stealing fundamentals remain the same. 4. Overthrow of first base. Practicing an overthrow at first base allows base runners to experience an extremely common situation in youth baseball. As the runner runs through the base, he must peek to his right and listen to the direction of the first base coach to see if he has an opportunity to take an extra base. The runner must not be indecisive. Once he commits to going to second base, he must go all out. Peeking to find the overthrown ball is crucial to ensure making the correct base running decision. 5. Straight line drill. Go. This is a basic yet effective base running drill. In this drill, a coach lines up the players on the foul line in the outfield. On the go command, the players will run down the line, about 20 to 30 feet out, trying to stay on the white line the entire time. Remember to instill upon the players that the foot closest to the base, the left foot, should be the first foot that moves. The benefit of this drill is to get players used to running in a straight line. Baseball's been called a game of inches, and proper base running epitomizes this saying. 6. Crossover glove drill. Another excellent fundamental of base running is the importance of the left arm, which helps establish a powerful first cross step. Having the base runner explode with his left arm will help transfer this explosion to his legs and forcefully swing his momentum toward the next base. In this drill, the coach will stand just off first base while holding out a glove waist high. The base runner, upon moving off the base, will reach for the glove with his left hand and bring it with him on his way to the next base. Grabbing the glove forces the runner to swing his left arm and the rest of his body to the next base in order to establish a proper crossover and build enough momentum for reaching the next base safely. 7. Belly out. Taking a small loop path on a ball hit to the outfield is the proper way to run toward first base because it creates a better angle for the runner to touch first base and stretch out a double. Place a cone approximately 7 to 12 feet before first base and have the players run around the cone and touch the base on the inside corner to create the best angle for continuing on to second base. If runners run in a straight line on a ball hit to the outfield, like they would if they were trying to beat out an infield single, then they are not putting themselves in the best position for the double. Even if their intention all the way is to stay at first base, taking the loop path allows players to round the base in case there's an errant throw. 8. Running from second to third. This is a very important yet overlooked base running drill for going from second base to third base on a hit into the outfield. As always, make sure the base runner begins at the back of second base. On a hit, or in this case on the go command, the base runner will run 2 to 3 feet behind the imaginary straight line from second to third base. Taking third base on an angle allows the runner a better path to home plate if the third base coach is waving them home. As always, have the runner aim for the inside half of the base. If the runner goes to third base on a straight line, then he'll have no way of making a quick and effective turn toward home. Making the loop is the best method for taking extra bases. 9. Calling timeout after sliding. Many times, a player will slide into a base safely, stand up, and then call timeout. This is wrong. The runner should always stay down and not attempt to get up until the umpire acknowledges the time called, because he may then accidentally come off the base. Players have been called out as they get up from the base as the fielder puts the tag on them because they either never called time or they called time and assumed the umpire acknowledged it. The coach, who acts like an umpire, should acknowledge some players' bids for time and not acknowledge others.
Safe. Time.
10. Bouncing off second base. When bouncing off of second base after the ball crosses home plate, the player should be at the back of the base and shuffle his feet down the line, putting himself in a good position to take third base if the catcher misplays, bobbles, or throws the ball back to the pitcher wild. He should keep his eyes on the ball at all times. Runners do not want to bounce too far off the base because they could get caught in nowhere land. When the catcher throws the ball back to the pitcher, the runner at second base should shuffle back to the base, still keeping his eyes on the pitcher. 11. Bouncing off third base. Youth league coaches should always be proactive in getting the runner home from third base at any time in the game. The wild pitch, passed ball, errant throw back to the pitcher, and delayed steal are all opportunities to score without the batter even making contact with the ball. Again, the player should face the pitcher and bounce sideways in foul territory as the ball crosses home plate. He should always have his legs bent and ready to go. If the pitch is not swung at and the catcher catches the ball, the base runner should follow the ball back to the pitcher as he shuffles back to third base in fair territory. 12. Ball hit to the left side. This is an excellent drill, which is practical when men are in second or second and third with less than 2 outs. The players start at second base. The coach will throw or hit the ball to the shortstop or third baseman. The runner on second will bounce off the base, and upon the fielder's release of the ball to first base, He will then run to third base. The next person in line will go from second base, and the runner who went to third will continue the drill doing the same thing from third. Runners do not want to go to third right when the ball is hit unless there are 2 outs, because the fielders will then tag them out easily. In this drill, the player doesn't have to slide, but keep reinforcing that in a game, the base runner from third always slides at home. A great teaching point here is to explain to the youth player that if he's on second and the ball is hit to third, he can take a bigger bounce. Coaches can also have their fielders in this exercise fake a throw to first base and then tag the lead runner to keep the runners honest and aware. 13. Bunt with a runner on third base. This is a great drill that combines base running skills with bunting skills. A popular strategy coaches use when there's a runner on third base with less than 2 outs, when the batter bunts the ball down the third base line, is to have the runner at third base bounce off the base and subsequently run home after the third baseman fields the ball and releases it to first base. Like the previous drill, the base runner doesn't need to slide in practice, but the coach must reinforce the importance of sliding into home plate in games, even when there appears to be no play at the plate. Make sure the base runner is not overly aggressive and does not commit to home plate too early and get tagged out by the third baseman. Making the first or third outs at third base are great momentum killers in games. 14. First to third on a bunt. Here's a great strategy to do when you have a speedy runner on first base. The coach will call for a bunt with the intention of having the base runner on first continue going from second to third. The idea here is that if the third baseman comes in to field the bunted ball with a fast runner on first base, the third baseman won't be in a position to recover back to third base to defend against the lead runner taking an extra base. Even if the third baseman hustles back to cover the throw, he'll be in motion, so it's therefore still a difficult play to make. The runner must make sure that the ball wasn't bunted too hard before making the turn to third base. 15. Delayed steal signs. Youth players love doing the delayed steal because they catch the other team sleeping and take advantage of ineptitude. Coaches and players should look for certain things when determining if an attempted delayed steal is possible. One thing to look for is when the catcher throws the ball back to the pitcher with a rainbow-like throw instead of a hard line drive. A high arc throw back to the pitcher may leave the runner with enough time to steal the base. Rainbow throws also cause the pitcher to be flat-footed when receiving the ball back from the catcher. Another indicator is when the catcher throws from his knees. When catchers throw the ball from their knees, they do not get enough power behind the ball, and lazy throws will result. Coaches should also look to see where the pitcher is when he retrieves the ball from the catcher. If the pitcher does not come to the base of the mound and look the runner back to first base, but instead catches the ball near the rubber, then this is another great indicator for a delayed steal. Also, another great situation for a delayed steal is when pitchers turn their backs to the catcher after they pitch the ball. Base running is all about finding weaknesses in the defense and taking advantage of them. 16. Delayed steal from first base. The delayed steal from first base might be the most common situation for attempting a delayed steal because it requires the longest throw from the catcher to defend against the steal. Remember, the player will bounce off the base once the ball crosses the plate and run when the catcher releases the ball to return to the pitcher. The coach should evaluate all of the indicators discussed in the previous drill to see if a delayed steal is a viable option. Here we see a successful delayed steal because the pitcher does not come to the base of the mound to retrieve the ball. Having the base runner slide should be reinforced. 17. Delayed steal from second base. The advantage for attempting a delayed steal from second base is that the base runner can get the largest lead at that particular base. The coach looks for the weaknesses in the defense, the 3 indicators mentioned earlier, and signals the base runner accordingly Sound fundamentals, such as starting from the back of second base and sliding into the back of third base, should be reinforced. Do not overcoach too many aspects of the delayed steal, and try to give each player a chance during the season to attempt one. The delayed steal from third base is a real challenge, yet could lead to an abundance of scoring opportunities. 18. Tease drill. The tease drill is another way of forcing the defense's hand into a delayed steal situation. Some teams aren't coached the correct way, especially when the opponent's base runner has an over-aggressive lead. In this exercise, the base runner at first is teasing the catcher to make an incorrect throw to the first baseman with a larger than normal lead. If the catcher throws behind the runner should take off for second base. If the catcher throws to the lead base, the runner must make his decision to either return to first base or take his chances beating the throw. The tease technique should be executed early in the game to test the opposing catcher's arm and baseball knowledge. 19. Signs. Having team signs and making sure the players know what they are is very important. However, many coaches do not practice reading signs and explaining their practicality in game situations until competition. Set up a pitcher and catcher. Line up players on first base and flash the first player in line a sign. When the coach yells, "Pitch," the base runner will take the appropriate action, according to what sign he was given. Steal, delayed steal, and fake steal should all be drilled. Every player should participate in this drill at every base. Getting players, especially the younger ones, comfortable with the team signs will pay dividends throughout the season. This drill also forces players to always pay attention to the third base coach at all times. When giving signs, coaches should also assign an indicator, such as touching his head, so that the team knows that the next sign flashed is the sign that they should follow and execute. Teams and coaches who want to be aggressive and have smart base runners should practice this drill. 20. Running in foul territory from third. Here we see a player running in fair territory and getting hit by the ball, which, according to the rules, is an out. Running in foul territory and being hit by the ball is only a foul ball. In teaching fundamentals for youth baseball, there's nothing wrong with showing the players the wrong way of doing a skill and what the consequences might be. 21. Ground ball to third. The runner on third base cannot advance home because the ball is hit too hard and right to the third baseman. If the third baseman fields the ball cleanly, it will keep the base runner from bouncing off of third base, and therefore making it difficult to attempt running home on a throw to first base. The base runner should be ready to bounce off of the base and be aware that if the throw gets by the first baseman, he can take off for home. Coaches should always show these different scenarios in practice. 22. Fake steal. A really aggressive base running strategy is to draw a throw to second base from the catcher by faking a steal from first base, hoping that the catcher throws the ball away and thus allowing the runner to advance to the base safely. When performing a fake steal, instead of going the full distance to the next base, the base runner will sprint 4 to 7 steps toward second base and then stop. Remember, the base runner has to run hard and try to sell the steal and draw the throw. If the catcher's throw goes into the outfield, then the runner can continue the steal, and in some cases, he can take 2 bases. Runners must be aware of the catcher snap throwing behind them to the first baseman. Fake steals can be performed at any base. However, they work best at first base because they require the longest throw from the catcher. 23. Tagging up from third base. Practicing successful tag-ups from third base with less than 2 outs can lead to more scoring opportunities in games. Coaches should teach their players to stay on the base until the outfielder catches the ball, and then tag up and score. Players should never lead off of third base unless there are 2 outs. They should stay on the base until the ball is caught. Even if the outfielder drops the ball, the runner will still be able to score easily from third base. Repetitive practice will instill the correct way to tag up, and players will learn to stay on third base on a fly ball with less than 2 outs. 24. Tagging up from second. There are a couple of schools of thought when tagging up from second base. Some coaches prefer the base runner to stay very close to the base. Another theory, which is favored in this video, is to lead off according to how deep the fly ball is and how good the outfielder's arm might be. The deeper the ball is hit, the longer the lead. This way, the player has time to go back to the base if the outfielder catches the ball, tag up, and still make it into third base on a long throw. Most importantly, if the fielder misplays the ball, the base runner might score from second base with a good lead. On the tag up, the player needs to follow the instructions of the third base coach. 25. Sliding drill. Here's a great drill that players of all ages like to do, which combines having fun with teaching the proper sliding technique. Take the team into the outfield and have everybody take off their shoes. Line them up and have them practice sliding to the white line, which for this drill can be considered the base. When sliding, the lead leg should be slightly bent as it touches the base or target with the heel first. The other leg should be bent and tucked underneath the lead leg. Make sure players lift their arms on the slide. This will help prevent injury. One of the biggest benefits in sliding is that many times a fielder will tag the base runner on the thigh or higher, and the umpire will rule the base runner safe because he slid under the tag. Base runners should slide at all close plays, and even if they know they're going to be out, because it might disrupt the fielder and prevent a double play. 26. Relay race. Coaches should end all practices on a high note. A team relay race is a great way to get everyone involved in a fun, competitive drill. Divide the players into 2 teams. One team starts at home plate, the other team starts at second base. On the go command, the first player in line for both teams will sprint around the bases, executing all of the base running techniques discussed in this video, such as bellying out and touching the inside of the base. Upon returning to the runners' respective teams, they will then touch the next player in line, who will continue the race. The first team to finish the race wins. Players have to touch every base. 27. Large plastic bat. Bunting is a skill that some youth players will catch on right away, while others will have a hard time mastering. A great introduction to the skill of bunting is to have the player go into the bunting position with a large plastic bat. The coach will then throw plastic balls for the player to bunt. The batter will remain in the bunting position as he practices bunting the ball down both the first and third base lines. Practicing with a large bat will increase the player's success rate. Bunting is an extremely important aspect of the game, and it's therefore crucial to practice the skill at a young age. 28. Tennis racket bunting. Another great technique for the beginner bunter is to bunt with a tennis racket. When using this prop, as well as the plastic bat in the previous drill, coaches and parents should not be overly concerned about the absolute correct bunting technique at first. Just making contact with the ball is sufficient. Try to make each new skill drill easy for success before refining them to correct technique. 29. Pivot bunt. There are 2 prominent methods of bunting. The first technique, which seems to be the most popular, is called the pivot bunt. The batter will pivot on the front of his feet without lifting them when the pitcher is about to release the ball to the plate. The bunter's knees should also be slightly bent. The non-dominant hand should be wrapped around the bottom of the bat by the knob, while the dominant hand loosely clutches the bat between the thumb and index finger above the grip and close to where the bat begins to increase in size to form the barrel. It's very important that the top hand does not wrap all the way around the bat, exposing the player's fingers to an oncoming pitch. The bottom hand's knuckles should face the pitcher. A good way to test for this is to have the batter wave to the pitcher in the bunting position. The top of the bat should also be higher than the bottom of the bat. Pivot bunts are good for surprising the defense and catching them off guard. It's therefore best to get into the bunting position at the last possible second. 30. Square bunt. The other popular bunting method is called the square bunt. In this technique, the player will give away that he's bunting a little earlier in the pitcher's delivery. This method is more for sacrifices than trying to bunt for a hit. When performing the square bunt, the batter moves his back foot forward so that it is parallel to the opposite foot. A good way to check for this is to see if the batter's shoulders are square to the pitching mound. The player should also wave his bottom hand in practice to make sure that it's facing the pitcher. Even though we recommend performing the pivot bunt at all times, coaches should allow players to choose which method makes them most comfortable at the plate. 31. Hybrid bunt. The hybrid bunt is a cross between the pivot bunt and the square bunt. The batter will put one foot in front of the other at an angle that directs them toward third base if he's a right-handed batter, or first base if he's a left-handed batter. Notice where the knob of the bat is pointing on the ground in the batter's box. The player's feet should follow the same direction when pivoting. Coaches can place a bat in the box during practice for reference and then take it away after the players get comfortable with the foot placement during a hybrid bunt. Like all bunts, the top of the barrel should be higher than the handle, and the knees should be slightly bent. 32. Wider stance for pivot bunt. The batter who knows he's going to bunt using the pivot technique should try to take a wider stance during the pitcher's delivery. A wider stance will help the batter become better balanced, especially if he's trying to bunt an outside pitch. Coaches need to recognize that a bunting technique that is good for one player does not mean that the next player will be comfortable with the same technique. Coaches need to be flexible and let the player bunt with the technique that they're most comfortable with to have success. 33. Move up in the box. Moving up in the batter's box could be a great advantage for the hitter when trying to lay down a bunt. Moving up in the box will almost guarantee that the bunted ball will land in fair territory. Another advantage of moving up in the box is to bunt the ball before it has time to curve or sink. So if the player is told in the dugout he should bunt, he should automatically set up his batting stance toward the front of the batter's box as soon as he gets in. 34. Bunting a low pitch. Many youth players will bunt at low strikes using the wrong technique. When bunting at a low strike, the player should bend his knees and meet the ball with the bat and not reach down from his waist. Players should never do this. When the player bends from his waist to bunt, besides ending up in an off-balance position, the top of the barrel will no longer be higher than the skinny end of the bat. The best way to convey the correct method is for the player to move down with the trajectory of the ball by bending at the knees and not bend forward awkwardly off balance at the waist. 35. Bunt into a circle. Players love challenges and competition. There are endless types of creative drills using props that coaches and even parents can do with their kids in their own backyard. In this drill, the batter is asked to bunt into a circle made from a rope. The circle should represent the approximate area where the bunt should be hit down the third base line. Coaches can present challenges like this and reward players with an extra swing in batting practice should their bunt end up in the circle. Even in fun drills like this, coaches should always be reinforcing proper techniques. When bunting, batters do not want to swipe at the ball. Instead, they should want to catch the ball with the barrel of the bat. Let the ball hit the bat, not the other way around. Swiping at the ball can lead to pop-ups and injuries. When bunting down the third base line, it's best to get the bunted ball down the line past the pitcher so that the third baseman has to field the ball. 36. Bunt between two cones. Here's another creative drill that uses props, which is very popular with the kids. 2 cones are set up at the approximate spot where the player's bunt should be directed. Coaches can use these bunt drills at the beginning of the player's turn during team batting practice. Again, a fun game can be established to award proper bunting techniques. If the batter's first bunt rolls between the cones, the player receives 1 extra swing during batting practice. If the ball goes through the cones on the second attempt, the player receives 2 extra swings. 37. Alternating cones. As the youth player gets more proficient at the bunting technique, increase the challenge. In this drill, a coach sets up 2 sets of cones. 1 set is on the third baseline, and the other set is on the first baseline. The player will bunt on the coach's command to whichever base the coach yells out for him to bunt toward. If he says third, the bunt should go between the 2 cones on the third baseline. If the coach says first, the player should bunt the ball between the cones on the first base side. For beginning players, coaches can have the player alternate bunting down each line. Again, proper bunting techniques should always be reinforced. 38. When to square to bunt. One of the toughest parts of teaching the youth player bunting is when he should actually square to bunt. You don't want the player to square too soon, giving the fielders a heads up to anticipate charging the ball. The batter also does not want to square too late, because he will then not be in a ready bunting position. We like to teach the youth player to show the bunt when the pitcher's front leg is at the top of the pitcher's leg lift, or just on its way down. Some players get into the bunting position much faster than others, so coaches need to recognize the skill levels of each batter and teach accordingly. 39. Pulling the bat back. Some youth baseball players think that when they are told or given the signal to bunt, that they must bunt on the next pitch no matter what, even if the ball is out of the strike zone. Coaches need to explain to their players that the bunting sign is only for a buntable ball, and that they have to pull their bat back if the pitch is clearly a ball. 40. Broomstick bunting. Here, we are challenging the player to bunt the ball with a broom handle, which is very thin and has a very small sweet spot. This drill is a lot harder than practicing bunting with a giant red plastic bat illustrated earlier. The coach will throw plastic balls for the batter to bunt with a broomstick, and the main goal is to just make contact with the ball. More experienced players can try to direct the ball down either baseline. Practicing bunting with a broomstick will make bunting with a regulation bat in games seem like a cinch. 41. Broom bunting. Another great prop to use for the beginner bunter is a broom. This is similar to using the big plastic bat because the surface area is quite large. Having the player make contact with a tennis ball on the end of a broom by the bristles gives the batter a better chance for success, which with young players is very important. Sometimes it is more important than stressing technique. Young players love the idea of using different, oddly shaped props, and the change from a regular bat makes this and the other drills more stimulating for the players. 42. Cardboard tube bunting. Another in a long line of creative bunting drills is to use a round piece of cardboard tubing. Again, the coach is standing at a short distance so the player can get lots of reps, and so the coach can save his arm. Tennis balls are being used, which is safe, and they hit the cardboard with lots of life. This round cardboard itself is larger than a bat, thereby assuring more success for the players. The coach should reinforce all the fundamentals that were discussed earlier, having the knees slightly bent and keeping the upper part of the bat higher than the lower part are 2 fundamentals that need to be stressed in all bunting drills. Most of these drills should be done with more than one coach and more than one bunting station in order to increase the repetitions for all of the players. It's a great idea to inform parents about some of these drills so they have the option of doing them at home. Here are 10 essential base running and bunting tips from Coach Marty Schupak. 1. Make it a habit for every base runner to bounce off the base on each pitch. 2. Allow even the slowest player on the team the opportunity to steal a base in a game. 3. Teach players to read the pitch when on base and anticipate possible wild throws or passed balls to advance to a base. 4. Players should always slide into the base because it may create defensive blunders. 5. Encourage your players to watch the base runners carefully when at baseball games to learn this very crucial yet overlooked aspect of the game. 1. Coaches should reinforce the proper bunting technique every week. Start every batting drill with 1 or 2 bunts. 2. Coaches should not be afraid to have their best bunters bunt with 2 strikes. 3. Expose young players to bunting at a very early age. 4. Set up bunting games once a week. 5. Don't have your most prolific bunter bunt all of the time. Coaches fall into this trap. Give them a chance to swing away. The Base Running and Bunting Drills video shows only a handful of the many drills that coaches and parents can use to teach 2 of the most important skills in baseball. Creativity is always encouraged, and many times, a lot of the drills that were shown can be practiced in a parking lot or in one's own backyard. Players that show improvement in their base running and bunting skills will also be more receptive to improving other parts of their game. So let's bunt and run our way on to a successful season.